Good morning, guys. Well, I say good morning. It's my morning, but good afternoon and good evening and hello to everybody. I'm Jen. I'm your host of Blockchain Banter, and I am really excited for this one. Marcus, we've had you on a couple of times before, but it's been a good minute, and it's our first time having Celo Colombia on with us. And I think there's been a lot happening with stablecoins, especially recently. We won't get into the regulation stuff too much, more kind of the fun stuff and the real world use cases and how we see stablecoins being adopted. And I'm really grateful that you guys were able to join Mark and I this morning. So thank you so much for being here. I want to pass the mic over to you guys, have you briefly introduce yourselves for anybody who may be unfamiliar. Marcus, maybe you wouldn't mind starting us off. I see you unmuting, so I'm gonna let you unmute for good here.
It was my nervous finger on the unmute button. Thanks so much for having me. So great to see you again. It's always such a great pleasure talking to you. Always about a topic that is very close to my heart. I love talking about stablecoins. I've been working in the field or in stablecoins now for the past 7 or is it already 8 years. I'm coming from a traditional finance and economics background, and like back then studied economics, studied monetary economics, worked on a PhD in that field, and then worked in traditional finance, investment banking, trading, asset management, and then 7 years ago started to work directly on stablecoins. Started to work on Celo. As an economist, my work on Celo already back then was not only about how to set incentives, but it was also about stablecoins again. So on Celo, we've built out the first stablecoins directly for mainnet launch. A few years ago, we had launched the Celo Dollar at mainnet launch as well, and then later on, Celo Euro followed, and then the Celo Real, and then a bunch of other currencies followed. And I think we will go a bit deeper into those currencies as well today with a very special example here with the Colombian peso today. And then I think around 2 years ago, we've spun out Mento to have basically a dedicated company that is working and focusing on local currency stablecoins, a dedicated platform that allows users to swap from one currency to the other, to enable all sorts of things, not only local payments, local credit, local lending, local funding in all sorts of ways, but also to enable on-chain FX and allow users to easily go from one currency to the other, to swap from a Kenyan shilling into a Colombian peso and then back into a dollar, whatever the user wants to do, that a platform like Mento, FX infrastructure like Mento supports this. And then having amazing projects that allow to trade stablecoins, for example, Carbon DeFi. I think this is really, really cool development in the Celo ecosystem that people now can execute different trading.
Oh, Marcus, you muted. Was your happy finger? Trigger finger?
Okay.
There you go. We heard where they can execute.
Sorry.
You're back with us. That's okay.
My earpods from another room connected to the computer. They also wanted to listen in. Now I turned off Bluetooth, so it should work again. Yes, so I think being able now to have more and more infrastructure that users can use these different currencies, that they can enter different trading strategies, and these trading strategies can be like all sorts of strategies that also include stablecoins of different currencies, I think is an amazing development. So yeah, looking forward to the conversation here today. Great to see you. Thanks for having me. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. No, of course. It's always a pleasure to have you. And thank you for being here with us. And you gave a lot of the, like in your intro, we're going to dive into each of these things a little bit deeper also, especially with the different ways that they're being used. And I think this is a lot of what I want to hear from Ana as well. Maybe you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and telling us a little bit about you and Celo Colombia.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, hi everyone. I'm Ana from Celo Colombia. So we started in Celo Colombia like 2 years ago, but we started just like being present in Twitter and making some presence on events in Medellin and Colombia. But it was really hard because we didn't have money, we didn't have funds, and we also didn't have a stable coin to teach people, because this is really important, was really important so for us. So last year, with the launch of the Celo Peso that was launched in October, we started like doing a strong presence and onboarding people, teaching people. So that's when we started. And yeah, we are doing like a lot of events in Colombia and trying to teach people how to get into the ecosystem, all the advantage that it has. Yeah, that's all about it. And so I'm more like in the marketing team, but I'm happy to be here and to tell everyone like about the our project and our team. Yeah.
Well, I love it, and I'm in marketing also. So, we're good here. We're not going to get too technical, so don't worry about any of that. It's going to be more just probably a lot of the things that you actually speak about and want to highlight from the marketing end and from like that sort of adoption end as well. So, no worries there. We're happy to have you. Thank you so much. Mark, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Sure, I'll keep it brief. My name is Mark Richardson. My previous career, I was an organic synthetic chemist. I used to teach organic chemistry at the University of California, Irvine, in California, obviously. And then immediately after that, I was a research chemist for the Australian government, where I was working at the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization in Melbourne, in Australia, up until the pandemic, and then pivoted into blockchain cryptocurrency during the pandemic, because I think a lot of people around that period did. I began as a full-time contractor for Bancor in January of 2021, and I now lead the project overall as of October of 2022. The product I'm most closely affiliated with at Bancor is the Carbon DeFi trading paradigm, which I'm very proud to have on Celo, and will be, I think, the focus of the things that I'm speaking about on today's call.
Perfect. Thank you. I wanted to maybe start with Anna, because a few of the things that, well, actually, first of all, what I really wanted to do was kind of just highlight Celo in general before we do. And I think that this was kind of a lot of the basis for the call. We had spoken about local digital currencies previously, but I think so many are still unaware of this. And there's been a lot of highlighting Celo in general, and I'm not taking from this by any means, it's been fantastic, but about all of their growth with USDT specifically, right? And the number of active users and the active addresses that we're seeing on Celo. So one, kudos to Celo, right? This has been a huge focus of theirs, and I think they've done a fantastic job really getting the word out on how stablecoins, Celo can be that blockchain for stablecoins. But I still think that a lot of people don't realize that the stablecoins go beyond, those sort of default that we've known for so long and become so familiar with, like USDT, USDC, DAI is a big one. And so this is kind of really where I wanted to shift into the local digital currencies. And Marcus, you had mentioned a few different ways these are being used. What I want to ask Anna, though, is in Colombia specifically, you had mentioned that, you guys were really trying to educate people on blockchain or on how they can use digital currency, but it was difficult without your own token. Have you found that having the Colombian peso, this has become a lot easier to really show people and guide them in how they're able to take advantage of this technology?
Yeah, so for us, and like Celo is also focusing in real use cases. So we want everyone to be part of this, and like some people really know and works with the dollar, but some people don't really have in mind like how much is $1, so how much is €1. We want people to don't have to get worried about that and just have something really familiar with them. If we are getting them into the crypto space, they don't really need to worry about this also. And like also like today is, I don't know, for the peso is going to be 4,000 or something like that for $1, but tomorrow you don't know. So it's also like we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, how much it will cost. So this token is really helpful for this.
And do you find, like, do you see in the last, I mean, you said that the Colombian peso was launched in October, is that right?
Right.
Do you see that it is actually a whole lot easier? Like, I used to live in Mexico, and keeping track of the exchange rate and everything else, like, it was so much easier when I was there to just use the actual peso than it was to use dollars and try to figure out what I was actually paying for something. In terms of actually like real world use cases and the adoption of crypto, where do you see that they're using it the most, in terms of those, real world use cases, or is it more just still the educational phase in Colombia?
So we are trying to get people, but yeah, we have to onboard some business. That we are doing some campaigns like a cashback campaign, but we have to onboard the business, and then people can come and buy with crypto. But yeah, we are just educating people and getting into, but it's not yet like a, a big ecosystem in Colombia, or like people that use crypto is not in the daily cases, but this is what we want to do.
Right. How did you and Marcus get together? I'm curious, like if there is a community that wants to, start onboarding, and I think it's a fantastic way to do it, is actually speak to something that they're already familiar with, and what better than their actual currency, right? This is a great way to actually introduce crypto. So if there's a community that wanted to start doing this, how did you two, get together, or, like Celo Colombia and Mento get together? And then one, maybe another question to follow up is, how would another community go about doing this?
That's a good question. Maybe I can jump in here. I think
Sure.
especially with Celo Colombia, it's amazing what they are doing on the ground. When we build, for example, on Mento, we don't have local knowledge. I love Colombia. One of the first offsites when I started to work on Celo was actually in Colombia. So we brought the team there. We did a bunch of potential user interviews. We did a lot of research there. Colombia always has been a country where there's high user penetration of the internet. So a lot of users have access to the internet. Also, people are on average relatively young. They are used to apps, to mobile money. Colombia is among those countries with the highest wallet distribution among the population. So it's an amazing country, but I don't have a lot of local knowledge. And of course, Anna has much more knowledge about users in Colombia, about what is working in Colombia and where the need is. And she also brought up something that is really, really important. Users in these countries, especially when they are not familiar with Web3 and not familiar maybe with all the FX rates and different currencies, they need something familiar, and therefore giving them then a local currency is really, really important. If you are a local entrepreneur, you have a business, you need a loan, your revenues are in local currency, you also want to borrow money in local currency because you don't want to have that FX risk when you enter a loan. So the Celo Colombia DAO actually got active in the Celo forum and basically said, hey, there is a need in Colombia, and Colombia is a really interesting country to focus on. This is how many other currencies emerged in the past, that there was first basically a forum discussion by the community, because one of the special things about Mento as a stablecoin platform is it is governed on chain, and it's governed by the community. It's not that there's basically an executive committee somewhere of like a large centralized company that says, okay, now from a strategic perspective, we don't have any knowledge about that country, but we should go in that country. This is not the case with Mento. It's basically the community decides. I think Celo Colombia DAO, Anna and team made a good point that it is a good move to work on a Colombian peso. And then there was a governance vote. The community said, yes, let's have a Colombian peso in existence. And this is then in the end how this got launched. Over the past years, the Mento Labs team has worked a lot to become much quicker to launch new currencies. We already now have a bunch of new currencies in the pipeline. There will be a Swiss franc, there will be a pound, there will be a yen, and a bunch of other currencies that are also really, really interesting from maybe a trader perspective, because they are actually good additions to these existing local currencies, because these are in interesting FX corridors to these existing currencies. But it always starts with basically a community discussion on where is a need, and there was a need in Colombia, and therefore I'm very, very happy that Celo Colombia exists and that they are doing such great work on the ground.
You, the last time we spoke too, you had just launched a few new ones. So you guys really aren't you're not slowing down at all. I think it was the Philippine peso.
Yes, the Puso, which is the Filipino peso. So now we have already multiple pesos on Mento. And I think with every currency launch, it becomes more and more interesting because it adds actually things you can do with. It adds like potential strategies you could trade on. It adds like FX
Let's
corridor.
talk about that.
Yes.
Let's talk about the potential strategies real fast. You mentioned trading a couple of times. So maybe give us a couple examples of what it is, like how these can be traded, because I think the other thing is a lot of people think stable coins, and maybe this goes back to the USDT, USDC, but they think, like right now, maybe a lot of people are going into stables because they're not quite sure what's going on with Bitcoin, or they're not quite sure what's going on with the rest of the market and the tariffs and all of that stuff, right? So we think of stable coins in that sense. How are you referring to trading stable coins?
So there's like a bunch of different strategies that users can enter into. And I think Mark and you already also have like probably ideas in mind how, for example, strategies with digital assets could work out. I'm looking at it from an FX perspective. FX as a market is the largest market in the world. There's $7.5 trillion traded in the FX market every day. Every day. So it's
That's
a huge
incredible.
volume, because everyone who in some way engages in business cross-border needs to also engage in the FX markets. A large part of these $7.5 trillion, 30% is actually spot trading, basically people that exchange one currency for the other. And for that, they need FX infrastructure. Traditional FX infrastructure, similar to many other markets, not 24/7. They don't work on the weekends. They are not super efficient, because in every country there's a bit different infrastructure, and actually blockchain and Web3 can be a common denominator in terms of rails where people actually can can do their trading on and can do transactions that help their businesses or their needs they need to fulfill. And that can be an entrepreneur in Colombia that wants to do cross-border business and has then therefore maybe exposure to other currencies. Could be that they're exporting to other Latin American countries, or that they're importing from other countries, or maybe still exporting to the US, although that might change going forward. But that's a different topic. So there's a bunch of reasons why you would engage in these FX markets. And then bringing FX infrastructure on chain for us is basically our core mission. We want to allow users to engage in these markets as seamless as possible, so that a user can always easily go from a Colombian peso to a Philippine peso, for example, depending on what their need is. And with this then enables a bunch of different things in trading. It enables currency swaps, spot market swaps, but it also enables futures, forwards, all sorts of derivatives that allow users, for example, to hedge their currency exposure. It allows users to engage on trading platform in speculation on where currencies might go. Will the dollar remain as strong as it is, or will it maybe change because of tariffs? You can now actually also engage in these types of trades. So there's basically a bunch of variety of things that users can do. And you could also simply or just basically go risk off. If, I don't know, Bitcoin is becoming too volatile, you can go into your local currency because your local currency is basically the currency you pay your taxes in, you source your input factors in, you do your daily payments in. So it basically allows you to do all of these things.
Thank you so much for explaining all of that. And I want to ask Mark also, because, we've discussed stablecoins, and, what we see goes back to, again, a lot of the USDT, USDC, and capturing that slight depeg, things of that sort, right? But what Marcus is speaking about, Mark, really goes into Carbon DeFi, because you're able to pair any two of these standard, tokens, right? So they can create whatever sort of strategy users that they're targeted towards. Maybe you could speak on that a little bit, or anything you might want to add to the trading aspect, and maybe even, the Colombian peso specifically.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, it's first let's acknowledge the legitimacy, I think, of the stablecoin paradigm in blockchains, not just for trading, from the perspective of a DeFi protocol, of course, right? This is the kind of thing that is going to attract a specific demographic to our protocol, and that demographic is relatively self-interested, in the sense that the reason that they are creating those stablecoin markets between the peso or anything else, and I'll show you a demonstration here of how the product can be used for to satisfy a profit motive. But it's important to recognize that, when these people are creating these markets, they really are supporting, I think, what is the most compelling use case of blockchains today. And this is a conversation that I've had relatively recently, even within the Bancor organization, with other members of my team, where we were sort of doing some soul searching, and because we've been in blockchain for a little while now, and one of the things that I was reflecting on was how much of that original vision for blockchains, and all of the optimism and an innovation that we were seeing discussed, and what people's hopes for the future were when we were back in sort of the 2019-2020 sort of era. and how like a lot of that really never came to fruition, or as it did come to fruition, did so in sort of a questionable way or to limited effect. But one of the things that did not disappoint is just how world changing the stablecoin component to blockchains is, and I really do applaud efforts like what Mento is doing, and especially blockchains that are dedicating themselves so entirely to this specific use case, and I really do think it's phenomenal. And it's not just for the forex trading aspect of it, which is again, in a couple of minutes I'll bring up our website and we can go over some of those things. But again, in terms of actual compelling use cases for a blockchain, exactly what Marcus is referring to. The people come to to blockchains and trade whatever kinds of cryptocurrencies they want. And it might not affect anything outside of that little microcosm of the community. But when you're doing this kinds of forex markets type stuff, there actually are people who will benefit materially from the fact that you're participating in those markets. And we've seen all kinds of DeFi infrastructure get built up and around the fact that there is now a stablecoin representing different fiat currencies issued by different world governments in order to build things like microfinancing protocols and all of this stuff that existed in DeFi for so long and didn't really have any purpose other than for people to sort of experiment with, at least not in any any real world facing capacity. Now suddenly has a really a really nice use case, and it's always nice to I just want to celebrate the projects that I see actually doing something important, and Mento belongs to that category. And I just wanted an opportunity to say that. So with that out of the way, let me go ahead and share my my tab here. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're going to have a look at ways that you could interact with our product as if it was a forex market. So the product that you're looking at here is Carbon DeFi, and it distinguishes itself from the rest of the sort of decentralized exchange economy in the sense that it's not typically what you would characterize as an automatic market maker. You can use it in that capacity, but you can also use it as an order book-like structure. So for people that are more accustomed to dealing with those kinds of systems, the kind that you would find on Binance or Coinbase or the Forex markets, then Carbon DeFi actually gives you access to that sort of structure, which is very nice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put up a chart between two of the Forex style cryptocurrencies, and we're going to look at how a selfishly motivated user, and that that's not meant to sound like someone's doing something immoral or something. I just mean that someone who is profit motivated, someone who is trading, in this case, the euro versus the real, because they are trying to earn money over time by benefiting from the relative volatility in these two tokens. And there's a couple of ways that we might do that, and I'm going to move to the simulation tab in just a moment, but I thought it would start here on the trade page. So if someone was going to to perform a trade with this market, there's a couple of ways that you might do it. You heard Marcus already say that a huge amount of this volume is traded on spot. And what spot means is effectively you are looking at the book and asking, how many of one token can you get in return for the other token, or how much of one currency can you get in return for the other currency. And so you can trade spot here as you like, and it will also tell you how this how these tokens are being routed against each other and things like that. And so that's, one way that you might interact with it. But if you are if you're not in a hurry and you have a plan about how to, how you plan to profit from the volatility in these things as you move into the future, then you've got another, a couple of other compelling options. One would be is to replace a recurring order, and what this means is that as the price of the euro moves between two ranges, then we can always sell the euros back into Brazilian reals when the price of the euro is high, and then we can buy those euros back when the price is low. And so every time we traverse this gap between the two prices that we set, then we will be essentially offering those tokens back up to the market for other people to interact with when they use the spot option. And so the marketplace is really contingent on people doing both of these things, right? The people that provide these kinds of strategies to the market to interact with, we call these people makers. And then the people that trade spot, we call these takers. Now, when you are making a market or acting as a market maker, it helps to to have a plan for how you're going to extract value from that marketplace, right? Because people aren't doing this necessarily for free or out of the good of their heart. And so what we offer is a backtesting resource so that people can come in and test how different strategies would have worked as they evolved over time. So I'm going to use that same pair here. And we're going to start with, a small amount of euros, let's say just $100 worth. And let's do about 500, 600 even, about $100 worth of C-Real as well. And so you can see here, I'm actually interacting directly with the UI, which is adjusting the parameters over here of the simulation. And so the first one we're going to check is just this recurring order. And so all this means is that we're continuously enumerating prices of euro versus the real to the upside. And this red banded area is our selling area. And then this green band is our buying area. And again, we're continuously enumerating prices down, effectively the order book in this case as well. And so if we start this simulation, you can see that this is effectively how the strategy is evolving. When this white line is representing the market price of euros versus reals, and so as the market price came down, you can see that it actually did eat into our bidding liquidity, and so our inventory of euros was increasing, and eventually it decreased sufficiently. The market appetite for the real was sufficient to completely consume all of our real inventory, which is fine, because as the price of the euro then improved, we began to sell those euros back for real, and you can see that on the chart here that as our euro inventory is being depleted, it's concomitant with the replenishing inventory in the real at the same time. And so here, this is just a short simulation. So this is going back to about October of last year. And again, remember, these are fiat currencies, so not nearly as volatile as cryptos usually are, and already at 0.5% ROI. Which is, nothing to scoff at compared to what you might be getting if you had deposited these things into a high interest bank account or something like that. And all the while, also supporting the, the communities and businesses that actually need to exchange between the real and the euro. So, like I said, an extremely compelling case for blockchains and cryptocurrency, with a real world facing context. And then you also get a really nice DeFi use case out of it as well for people that are trading these things versus each other for selfish reasons. So I think it's a really nice, a really nice synergy there. And I'm extremely proud to be working with Celo and with Mento to see this stuff in operation.
That's super interesting. I think I really like how you explained how in this case real world use cases and DeFi or trading use cases are actually coming together, because here, if you imagine you're in Colombia, you're doing a lot of business with Brazil. In the past, basically, it's probably as a small or medium business almost impossible to directly engage in these FX markets at a reasonable price. Often you then have to go via other currencies. You probably have to exchange from Colombian peso to the US dollar, and then from the US dollar to the Brazilian real, because there's no direct liquid accessible market between those two currencies. And now with this tool, you actually have a backtesting functionality, you have spot trading functionality, you have recurring trading functionality, you can simulate how your strategy would work out, and you can actually then therefore directly, I would say, adjust your strategy to the needs of your business or to your FX needs. So I think it's really amazing what you have here as a tool.
Thank you. I
Anna, I'm
appreciate that.
curious. Oh, sorry. With this being such a large, I mean, what did you say? 7.3 or 73 trillion, Marcus? What it
7.5 trillion dollars, yes.
$7.5 trillion. Has the Colombian community taken an interest in this? Are they aware of this sort of use case, Anna?
I don't think so, but I think it's really interesting. Also, like Marcus was saying, because there are a lot of Colombians living abroad, and there are a lot of foreign people living in Colombia. So this is really interesting. It's not going to be for everyone, but I think it is going to be really interesting for them to use this. But I don't think we start teaching people like basic things, but this is something that we have to make to teach them, like to get into that, but we haven't done that.
You know, and I think there's a big leap too between learning about it and understanding what it actually is, and then putting it into motion, right? And then the actual act of. Like, I think hearing about, and I think this is kind of where the speculation, you know, where I was naming their call kind of came in, was we talk about different things that are possible with local stable coins and digital currencies, and then we actually see them coming into play. Marcus, one that you had mentioned earlier was, you know, for microloans and things like this for businesses. You know, it was something that had kind of been spoken about, and, you know, are we going to see that this is possible? And we actually see this happening, you know, on Celo also. So I think, like, Anna, right now is that sort of education phase, right, where they're kind of understanding what the possibilities are. And then it hopefully soon, you know, it'll be really nice to see them actually start implementing those and taking advantage of them. But I have to say, I do appreciate your approach of the education first and really kind of taking the time to teach them about it, because I don't know if I personally think we see a lot, you know, enough of that really in the industry, at least not on crypto Twitter, right? So when you have your feet on the ground and working within your community, it's really nice to hear about. Have you seen them using this, like the adoption of it? Do you see more and more? Like, I know that we're seeing the trades on Carbon DeFi, right? Things are happening with the Colombian peso. It's not just there for them to see and access, but we do see it actually in motion. Is there like a specific use case, or really just kind of still that experimental phase? It's still so new over there, right?
Yeah, so we are also working with some familiar or some friend projects like Refi Medellin. They have a lending platform, and they do implemented in the Celo Peso there. So this is another use case that we have there. I think they also have an UV, and we are paying like all of our stuff in Colombia with the Celo Peso. Yeah, we started to like to uh, to, I don't know, like to plant all our opportunities to make the Celo peso grow. So, but and yeah, we just started like in October. We just get some funds, so it's like a step by step that we are working with that. Like,
I understand. I've been trying to explain it to my family for the last 5 years, and I'm still so, I mean, to see that it's, they're already using it for the lending and borrowing. And I think that's probably one of the easiest things to really understand is when you can say you're eliminating this middleman now you can actually do this yourself, and it is more peer-to-peer. I think that's probably one of the easiest use cases to grasp. Marcus, you unmuted. You want to go ahead? I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, actually, I just want to briefly add to what Anna was saying. What Celo Colombia DAO is doing is really amazing. If you go to their Twitter, you can already see like a bunch of like photos from events where you could buy your beer or your water at the event or your food at the event with Stablecoin. And I really like how basically they show users how easy it is to use, to take a bit away like the fear of this like really complicated and volatile things that they hear when they hear crypto or blockchain, and make it like usable in everyday settings. So I think this is super important, and it's not only important for the C Corp, the Colombian peso stablecoin, or for Mento or for Celo. It's actually important for the broader like Web3 community that here like real end users are now finally starting to get acquainted to these new things, and therefore it's really, really important work that is happening here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely agree. I did share, by the way, while we were all talking, some.
Sorry, I just
That's
wanted
okay.
to. I just wanted to add something. Like, forget to say, like we are working with an off ramp that is working in Colombia, like Bucks so people can pay with crypto, and they make like in an internal process, so they pay with fiat to the business, so the business don't really know what that we are paying with crypto, and that's how we show so easy to pay with crypto, because the business don't really know. They use a QR code that with an bank account in Colombia, like the biggest bank account in Colombia, do that. But so we just use that and use the off ramp that we are working with in Colombia.
That's awesome. And you know what I was thinking about too while you were talking was something that we hadn't really mentioned. I forget where it was. I don't want to start throwing countries out there because I really don't remember which one it was. But there was a country a couple of years ago where the banks were basically shut down. You were limited to the amount of withdrawals that you can have. I think maybe it was $500 a day or something of the sort. But that was it. The government, needed your money and they would pay you back, and you no longer really had access to your own funds that were being held in the bank. And I think having the local digital currency is huge because you are familiar with your own currency, and here you are actually in possession of it yourself, and kind of eliminating that sort of worry depending on where you are located, and if that could potentially be a concern of yours. So I think that's something that we really didn't touch on that I think is a huge use case and reason to really explore the local digital currencies. Mark, really fast, we have about 6 minutes left, and I do want to give everybody just a couple of minutes each, but I noticed that you brought up, this is a simulation now with the Colombian peso, actually, against Mento's
Yes.
euro stablecoin. So what are
Yes.
you showing us
Exactly.
here? 17, go ahead,
All right.
I'll pass to you.
So yeah. So this is just to show that there are. I think that there is a misconception in the crypto community And I think that misconception began in sort of late 2019, moving into 2020, with things like DeFi Summer and things beginning, where there were these ludicrous APYs or ROIs or whatever that were being offered in terms of either some lucrative kickback schedule from the protocol itself, either in tokens or in stable coins or something else, but that it never really had anything to do with the the economics or finances of the protocol itself. And I think most people still hold that view, that they don't really want to consider the use of the protocol too much. They're mostly just interested in being given tokens or something as a rewards program or something else. But here we've got an actual a pretty good example, because the APYs and rewards and things like that have really died out since the 2019 period. And it's even pretty difficult to find something that would offer you a 17% return since October. But here we have actually generated a 17% ROI versus the Celo Euro and the Colombian peso. And this is without rewards or anything else, and is actually facilitating, like I said, what I consider to be the most compelling use case for blockchains at the moment, maybe forever. And so, yeah, this is the same thing. So we've got
and you said October.
We set up
17. Mark, really fast. You said 17%
that's 70%
since October, but I'm looking at this. This looks like January at the dates that you have set up here, January to April. So this is even less of a time frame.
Even less of a time frame, exactly. Yeah, and depending on how you want to extrapolate that into the future, is dubious in my opinion. But at least in terms of the backtesting resource, had you held this strategy, this is exactly the ROI that you would have received. So nothing to scoff at. And I think that legitimately should be challenging that view that the only good thing that you can do in DeFi is get rewarded for using protocols that you don't understand. Here is a really compelling counterexample where the better you understand what you're doing, the higher the reward rate, and it's in rewards that are that aren't rug tokens that some team is trying to trick you into taking on board. These are actual fiat stablecoins, and issued by an extremely respectable project on a blockchain that everyone loves. So yeah, I think that it is something that I think more people should consider.
So really quickly for the Celo Colombia community, right? I know we're just experimenting with this, but what Mark is showing this, he's using this simulator. We had talked about this before, right? Mark, I don't know if you had mentioned that it's using the real historic data to like price data to create this sort of simulation. If you wanted to, we're talking about the education phase, right? So, this is part of that education phase. This is a tool that was created. This is on the Carbon DeFi UI where you can go in and it's kind of almost like trading paper money, right? You're just back testing this, using that real historic data to get an idea of what sort of outcome this sort of strategy would create. So this or would produce. So this is, I'll put the link in the comments here. We're down to 1 minute. I don't know if you guys have a hard stop, or if maybe you each have like 2 minutes to give a quick elevator pitch, anything about your project that we might not have covered. I do want to give you at least the opportunity to do so. So anybody feel free to unmute and grab it and run.
Unfortunately, I have a hard stop. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me here. And maybe the last thing to mention is I really enjoy a lot working with all you guys here in this call, because I think with basically local knowledge, with like trading infrastructure, FX infrastructure, simulation infrastructure, we actually can create something really, really beautiful that a lot of people will use in the future and already using. So I think it's really exciting. I love the project. I love also the Carbon DeFi platform. I love the work of Celo Colombia DAO on the ground. So I think here something really exciting is coming together. Thanks a lot for having me.
Same.
And hopefully talk
Thank
soon.
you. Thank you so much, Marcus. Hopefully we will talk soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Anna, do you have anything that you would like to add?
So I just wanted to say thank you for having us here today. I was going also to thank Marcus because we are where we are because of Mento and because of Celo. So we just want to say thank you to everyone. And yeah, I hope like these tools like Bancor will also help us like to grow together, because yeah, we hope that we can integrate more tools like this and to get more people to get the benefits that we can get.
Absolutely. I look forward to like a further sort of collaboration, right? It was wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Really excited for everything that you are doing for the Colombian community and teaching them about cryptocurrency and bringing them, you know, their peso. So thank you so much for joining us, and, you know, hats off to you and all the work that you're doing on the ground there.
Yeah, thank you to you
Of
both.
course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mark, bye-bye. Mark, is there anything that you'd like to add last minute? I shared all of the links for the simulator and Carbon DeFi on Celo.
No, that's okay. I think that I said everything that I wanted to say on the call.
Okay. Well, then we will leave it at that. Thank you again. I know Marcus had to drop, but thank you to all of my guests today. Thank you to all of our viewers. And if, you know, as always, if there are any questions about any of them, please, you know, don't hesitate to DM me or reach out to me. I'm here to either answer your questions or hopefully connect you with someone who can. So thank you. And I'll see you guys next week, next Wednesday.
Thank you, Jen.
Of course.